Yo, what's going on, guys? So I'm back to break down issue number 2 of the new Lock and Key Sandman crossover, Hell and Gone. So far I made videos for In Battalions Go, which was the setup for this crossover, and then I recently uploaded a video on issue number 1. So part 2 is going to conclude the Sandman Lock and Key crossover, and it's also going to conclude the Lock and Key Golden Age. And this issue is pretty big, almost 50 pages, so I'm going to do 2 videos for part 2. This one's going to cover half of it, and then I'll upload another one covering the second half. Alright, so to recap issue number 1, and obviously for a more in-depth recap, check out my video I made on part 1. I'll leave a link at the end of this video. Mary's going to use the Anywhere key to travel to England to seek help from the wickedest man in England, Roderick Burgess. She wants him to let her talk to the entity captured in his basement known as Dream or Morpheus in exchange for a Locke family key. She's going to end up giving him the matchstick key, but realizes that she's been tricked when Morpheus does not respond to any of her pleas for help. She was hoping to learn of a way to save her brother's soul from hell after he committed suicide in the Pale Battalions Go arc. So instead of giving up, Mary's going to trade the Anywhere key with Roderick's son Alex in exchange for Morpheus's tools, his helm, pouch of sand, and his ruby. And then she's going to use these to travel to his kingdom, the Dreaming, where she's going to run into all the fan favorites from that universe. And then she's going to end up in Dream's library with the entity known as the Corinthian, but he's going to be posing as Lucian, the librarian. Okay, so issue number 2 picks up back in the library, but before the Corinthian can shut the door to the castle, the scarf, Lucian, or Lucian, I know that's a French word, I'm probably not pronouncing it correct, but bear with me, the scarf he was wearing blows into the door before he could shut it. Mary recognizes the Locke insignia on it and she picks it up. And then as the Corinthian's giving her the tour, he suggests that maybe she could just trade Dream's tools for her brother's soul. But Mary kind of shoots down that idea, not believing that a demon would be so honorable. Then he's going to guide her to the section of the library with the information on hell featuring books like The Who's Who of Satanic Majesties. And then about around this time, Fiddler's Green is going to be making his way to the castle. And he's going to find Lucian hanging in a cage with no eyes, which is the trademark of the Corinthian. Before the Corinthian can make his move on Mary, she's going to surprise him from behind by choking him with her mother's scarf, which was a present to the real Lucian. And I talked about it in my last video about how the two would correspond using the stamp key. And then in their struggle, the Corinthian's going to reveal he wants Dream's tools for himself so that he could rule the Dreaming. And then also we're going to get some creepy art from Rodriguez here with the tongues of the eye mouth sticking out. Alright, so and then Mary's going to run out of the castle, where Fiddler's Green is going to run interference for her, standing in between the two, and then he's going to be taking the cleaver to the stomach in the process. At this time, Lucian's going to return with 2 lions that serve as gate guards, while Mary, she's going to use the tools to just make the Corinthian disappear. I'm not sure where he goes. Maybe I missed something there, but she then uses the pouch of sand to heal Fiddler's and Lucian's injuries. The 3 regroup in the castle where Mary offers to break Morpheus out, but is politely dissuaded by Fiddler's Green and Lucian. They believe she should just leave the tools where she found them and forget about them to avoid any vengeance. They're not sure how Morpheus would react. And then when Mary explains her situation, Lucian explains to her the usual methods of getting into hell and retrieves a book that Mary notices has an image of a key on it. So this is the same key that Morpheus outlined in sand for her on his prison wall. Now Lucian's going to explain that this is the key to hell and Lucifer's own sign and sigil, and that his possession of this key is what grants him sovereignty over hell's kingdom. This is where Mary has the idea to craft her own key to hell, but she is warned it could trigger a leadership crisis and lead to a war for the command of hell. Mary wakes up from the dreaming back in Alex's bed with her new partner, Fiddler's Green, who is not sure how he's able to follow her into the real world. And then at the same time, Alex is going to be returning from his trip to Egypt. The two are going to re-exchange the Anywhere key and Morpheus's tools. Then Mary and Fiddlers are going to travel back to the Locke home. Here, Mary's going to use the Harley Quinn key to access a secret wardrobe built by her father Chamberlain to hide the more powerful keys after the failure of the Vault of Shadows in Pale Battalions Go. Then she's going to lend Fiddler a sword with a key in the hilt that can cut through anything, including a human soul, which he remarks will try not to sit on it. And so now that they are armed, Mary's going to forge the key to hell using some unused Whispering Iron from the Black Door, and then the book from Dream's library as a guide. Alright, so they have the weapons and they got the key. Next up is to summon a guide, or as Mary calls it, a cab. So they're going to summon Etrigan, a low-level demon, and when the demon asks for a soul for payment, Mary shows him the newly made key to hell, causing him to cower in fear because he believes it to be the real key and then that it was stolen from Lucifer. So in return for his services, Mary's going to promise to promote him to a rhyming demon, which is a higher level demon. For some reason, higher ranked demons are allowed to rhyme. I'm not sure why. And he'll get that promotion when she leaves hell with her brother. So he's going to agree to transport her and Fiddler's Green to hell. And then I'll stop here and then continue the second half in another video. Alright, so I think that's a good spot to stop so I can focus on the trip to hell in part 2. Overall, this is an exciting setup for a clash between Mary and Lucifer over the dominion of hell, and it leaves you wondering how Mary's going to be able to save her brother and escape hell safely. So any fan of Sandman is loving this chance for new material, especially if you were someone who read it back in the 90s. This is probably great nostalgia. But again, if you haven't read it, I recommend you read at least volume 1 of Sandman to really appreciate all the references. And also with the new Netflix show coming out, now is a great chance to read it, so you could be that hipster who explains all the differences between the show and the comic to your friends. And like I mentioned before, the two universes, they mesh really good. They don't seem out of place or forced. The key to hell was a real concept in Sandman, developed in volume 4 of the series, Season of Mist. So it's not something Hill invented just to go with the Locke and Key theme. He is building all source material. And finally, I'll talk about the art. I always kind of forget about the art. I always enjoy Gabriel Rodriguez's work. You know, it's nothing too abstract or half-baked. It's clear and crisp, and it's got plenty of detail. And especially, you know, we will see when we get to hell some really good detail. So stay tuned for part 2 of part 2 to Hell and Gone. Thanks for watching. Bye.